All right, let's try this again. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. You got a little bit of a bonus edition. I think it's working now. We'll see here in just a second. We've got a lot to get to, a lot to cover this morning. There is. Yeah, it looks like we're good. If someone wants to respond and tell me that we're all set, I would appreciate it if everything looks okay. We do have some comments from viewers after yesterday's program. We're going to get to those. Boy, a lot of updates from yesterday's broadcast and a little bit of last week's broadcast. We'll be talking about that as well. And some New York State issues, keeping you updated on the budget. All right, first up, Rick writes in after yesterday's broadcast. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Does Trump have the sole authority to exercise all of these crushing tariffs? I agree that things were out of balance with some trading partners, but when Trump raises a tariff, they raise tariffs on their end, and it's just a wash. It doesn't solve anything, just significantly raises costs on both sides. Somebody that's gone bankrupt 6 times shouldn't be managing our economy. The House and Senate should step in, but they have no intestinal fortitude. To throw in another topic, that's all the talk about annexing the Panama Canal, Canada, and Greenland, in parentheses, Denmark. These are supposed to be our allies and friends. Putin pulls these stunts. I'm 66 years old and have never voiced my opinion in public like this. Never seen anything like this before. Everyone worldwide should brace for tough times if Trump is allowed to continue his unbridled agenda. Thanks, Rick. Well, thank you, Rick, for sending that in after yesterday's broadcast. Appreciate it. We're going to talk about tariffs a little bit later on in the broadcast. Tomorrow is quote-unquote Liberation Day, where Trump will be making that announcement, I believe from the Rose Garden. Comment from a different viewer. I would like to suggest a topic for your show. Namely, I would like to see an in-depth analysis of what the Democrats' rhetoric has caused. In that, what can be directly attributed to all Democrat senators, congressmen, and women, and whether or not the perpetrators of political-oriented violence are either Americans registered as Democrats or if they're in this country on visas or illegally. We do have a couple updates on that violence and some of that rhetoric a little bit later on as well. But first, apparently last night, you may have missed it, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker's marathon speech on the Senate floor stretched into overnight early this morning. He is doing it as a protest of Trump's actions, saying that he will keep going, quote, as long as I am physically able. Now, the Democrat senator, this is interesting because Cory Booker is trying to make a name for himself and try to become kind of a leader when there's this leadership void in the Democrat Party. And I don't think it's working. Cory Booker has always had aspirations, some even suggesting that he wants to be president. So it's kind of interesting. I think we're running good. Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting that this is his attempt to kind of make a name for himself, put himself back in good standing. He began his remarks at 7 p.m. yesterday and is undertaking this effort at a time when Democrat leaders in Washington are under pressure for their base to do more to stand up to Trump. Booker is a member of the Senate Democratic leadership team. As of 5 a.m. this morning, Booker was still speaking and had touched on a number of topics. I'm not going to go through each of his topics. The country is in crisis. This was kind of the crux of his argument. You can't really call it a filibuster because Booker's not blocking legislation or a nomination. The Democrat senator's speech will keep the Senate floor open and floor staff working as well. U.S. Capitol Police members detailed to the chamber for as long as he continues speaking. But lawmakers had concluded voting on Monday before he began his remarks. Again, at one point he invoked John McCain. Now, we have seen this in the past. Jeff Merkley gave a speech against Neil Gorsuch back in 2017, Chris Murphy on gun control in 2016, Rand Paul over National Security Agency surveillance programs in 2015, and Ted Cruz against the Affordable Care Act in 2013. The late Strom Thurmond holds the record for the longest speech when he spoke on the floor for 24 hours and 18 minutes to oppose the Civil Rights Act of 1957. So Cory Booker's marathon speech, last I saw, is continuing, starting at 7 p.m. And as of 5 o'clock this morning, he was still giving his speech. For whatever it's worth, I guess this is to show kind of the, I'm not even going to say radicalized supporters, I think just the Democrat supporters in general who are saying that leadership is not doing enough. I guess this is his response to that. Now, on the other side of the coin, Anna Paulina Luna, representative from Florida, is resigning from the House Freedom Caucus. It's the latest escalation in her fight against House GOP leaders and a small group of members on the right flank of their conference over the issue of proxy voting. Now, if you're not familiar with proxy voting, essentially a representative can leave and have someone vote for them. It came, fashionable during COVID, of course, and then nothing's been done to end it. Kind of a, if you will, a work from home at the United States House of Representatives. Luna has teamed up with Democrats and several other Republicans on a mechanism aimed at forcing consideration of legislation that allows new parents in the House to vote remotely for 12 weeks around the baby's birth. Quote, I have consistently supported each of you, even in moments of disagreement, honoring the mutual respect that has guided our caucus. That respect, however, was shattered last week. The focus of her anger is a brief incident from earlier this month when a group of House conservatives held up a chamber-wide vote on unrelated legislation to press GOP leaders to kill Luna's measure known as a discharge petition. Now, a discharge petition allows lawmakers to force a bill onto the House floor despite objections from leadership, provided the mechanism gets signatures from a majority of the chamber. Quote, acting within the House conference rules we all agreed to, I sought to bring a vote to the floor on a measure that would allow new mothers in Congress, fewer than 14 in our nation's history, and fathers, if they choose, to vote by proxy. Luna continued, this was a modest, family-centered proposal, yet a small group among us threatened the Speaker, vowing to halt floor proceedings indefinitely, regardless of the legislation at stake, including President Trump's agenda, unless he altered the rules to block my discharge petition. She shared praise for House Freedom Caucus Chairman Andy Harris, whose conduct she called gentlemanly, but added, with a heavy heart, I am resigning from the Freedom Caucus. I cannot remain a part of a caucus where a select few operate outside its guidelines, misuse its name, broker backroom deals, undermine its core values, and where the lines of compromise and transaction are blurred, disparage me to the press, and encourage misrepresentation of me to the American people. She will be the first House Freedom Caucus member to leave the group, which does not advertise its membership in the 119th Congress. The most recent departures before Luna includes Representative Warren Davidson from Ohio and Randy Weber, who were both pushed out, and Representative Troy Nellis from Texas, who left during the shakeup. Now, Speaker Johnson said he believed proxy voting was unconstitutional in remarks after House Republicans' weekly closed-door meeting on Tuesday. We addressed this in conference this morning. A handful of our colleagues have gotten behind the efforts. And look, I'm a father, I'm pro-life. Here's the problem. If you create a proxy vote opportunity just for young parents, mothers, and the fathers in these situations, then where is the limiting principle? A little wonky there, but I thought worth mentioning nonetheless. A little bit of infighting in the House Freedom Caucus. Yesterday was also a big day. I'm going through some breaking news if you haven't heard it. Sorry, we're rushing through a lot. I'll try to keep you updated on Cory Booker. I don't know if he's still going, but beginning his speech to, I guess, signal to the world that he's the strongest leader to fight Trump. I don't know what it does at the end of the day other than be a very long speech, a marathon speech. Nothing is being blocked. No nominations are being blocked. No vote is being blocked. It is literally just a speech where he, going on almost 12 hours, gets to, rant against President Trump. What's interesting, though, if you look at the media's coverage of it, the only place I saw any coverage was kind of the far left CNN. It wasn't something that was being highlighted by too many news outlets, but I think worth commenting on nonetheless. But yesterday, Kid Rock joined President Trump for an executive order limiting ticket scalping. The order denounced scalpers for using bots and other unfair means to acquire large quantities of face value tickets and reselling them at enormous markup on the secondary market, price gouging customers. As the president signed the order, he was joined by Kid Rock. Quote, anyone who's bought a concert ticket in the last decade, maybe 20 years, no matter what your politics are, knows it's a conundrum. Wow, that's interesting choice of words by Kid Rock. You buy a ticket for $100. By the time you check out, it's $170. But more importantly, these bots, they come in and get all the good tickets to your favorite shows you want to go to. Then they're relisted immediately for sometimes a 500% markup. The artists don't see any of that money. I would love down the road if there'd be some legislation to actually put a cap on the resale tickets. Now, per the order, the Federal Trade Commission must collaborate with U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi to make sure the ticket resellers are following competition laws. Bondi and Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent are now also expected to ensure scalpers are in compliance with IRS rules as well. It also enforces the Better Online Ticket Sales Act to keep scalpers from using computer programs to buy available ticket inventory automatically so they can be resold at unfairly high prices. The White House claimed that some reports show fans pay as much as 70 times the face value of tickets when buying from scalpers, with none of the profit going to the artist. Now, during that executive order signing, of course, well, first of all, I don't know if you saw Kid Rock's outfit. Very patriotic. But, of course, President Trump was asked about this running for a third term. Now, I think it's interesting because the media is in a tizzy over this, and we're going to get to that when we come back. We have other updates as well, but I can't just read through 15 different stories here quickly. But the media asks him a question about running for a third term, and then this is typical what they do with Republicans. And then after they keep asking him, they say all he wants to talk about is that third term. They do that. I think it was Mike Huckabee. Don't quote me, but Mike Huckabee was always asked about religious issues. And he even said, I believe it was at a debate or in an interview one time when I was watching him, he said, they keep asking you these religious questions, and then they say all he wants to talk about is religion. And that's what they're very similar to what they're doing here. But there's some that see a conspiracy theory in it, because there are some that see a conspiracy theory in everything Trump does. We're going to talk about it when we come back. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs.
Advanced robotic surgery is now available in the Southern Tier. With the Da Vinci Surgical System, experienced local surgeons at UR Medicine St. James and Jones Memorial Hospitals can perform minimally invasive procedures with greater precision.
That means less pain, shorter hospital stays, and a faster recovery so you can get back to life sooner.
Trust the expertise of your local surgeons and the most advanced technology for your surgery.
You no longer need to travel for cutting-edge surgical care.
Visit robotics.urmc.edu for more information.
You don't have time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tub and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Fox Sports app isn't just any sports app. It's your sports app. Your teams, your highlights, your scores. Get more of what you want.
To the end zone!
Stream your teams live. It's free with your pay TV subscription.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you to everybody commenting, saying we are coming in crystal clear. I appreciate it. Just had a little bit of a internet glitch at the very beginning of the program, but we're back on track. So Trump says that if he could run for a third term, and he believes that he can, he would like to run against Barack Obama. I'd love that. That would be a good one, Trump told reporters at the Oval Office. This is when Kid Rock was joining him in the Oval Office. Again, that outfit. I know people are asking me to run, and this whole story about running for a third term, I don't know. I never looked into it. They do say there's a way you could do it, but I don't know about that. But I have not looked into it. I want to do a fantastic job. We have 4 years. Now, again, what I think is interesting on it is, remember, it's the media asking, and then they're saying Trump sounds dead serious about a third term, no matter what's in the Constitution. This coming from Zachary Wolf at CNN. Listening to President Donald Trump is often an exercise in gauging whether he's serious or not. Is he serious about tariffs that could drive the U.S. economy into recession? We'll find out more this week. Is he serious about protecting Social Security and Medicare? It could depend on your definition of waste, fraud, and abuse. Remember, this is CNN trying to be less biased because they see their ratings plummeting. This is them attempting. There is little question, however, that Trump is not joking, as he told NBC News in a phone interview Sunday when he talks about running for a third term. That despite how fantastical it seems that a president could ignore the 22nd Amendment and all the hurdles to changing the Constitution's two-term limits. There are methods, Trump said, to run for a third term, but he did not elaborate. Again, I'm not going to go through all this. It goes on to essentially just criticize him for everything, suggesting it's making him a strong man, that it's like Putin, that he's normalizing these radical ideas. He's testing the U.S. Constitution over and over again. And then they went through his flawed ideas, the different ways he thinks he can do it. But anyway, the reason I bring that up is because this is the media's favorite topic right now. Well, I believe this is the New York Times. They see something more nefarious in all this. Now, keep in mind, when I bring up what they believe the strategy is, they are the ones, meaning the media, asking him over and over the same question and then saying that he's talking about it too much. But the president's comments deflect attention from other controversies, and they freeze the field of potential successors who might steal the spotlight from a lame duck. So they got a lot of covered here. They can say the lame duck already this early on in his presidency. They can also, as they normally want to do, suggest something nefarious behind the scenes with Trump. President Trump cannot run for a third term as president, barring changes to the Constitution. But that has not stopped him from openly flirting with the idea. This again coming from the New York Times. He has floated it publicly and privately. And on Sunday, he said he was not joking about it in an interview with NBC News. He insisted there were methods. We talked about this. Mr. Trump has not specified those methods, and there are no apparent signs that he is actually laying groundwork for a third term. But his musings, whether based in reality or not, serve a distinct political purpose. They redirect attention from other controversies, such as the leaked signal message chain, in which his top advisors discuss details of a military operation. And they freeze the field of potential successors who may steal the spotlight from a lame duck, a status dreaded by American presidents who see their relevance diminished steadily over time. Derek Muller, a law professor at the University of Notre Dame, said it reads like somebody who doesn't want to be treated like a lame duck and is throwing it out there right now. It's really hard to be a lame duck president or to be treated that way. And people are talking to you like your term's already over. So what they're seeing in all of this is a way to distract from, number one, being labeled a lame duck. Number two, distract from controversies that the media is kind of fabricated, or maybe not fabricated is not the right word, but propped up, built up, because they're looking for what basically Democrat leadership won't do, looking for a way to kind of stymie Trump's agenda. They were hoping the bureaucrats behind the scenes would be able to do that. That does not seem to be an effective strategy. And I just say that because Politico had a piece in between when President Trump was elected and before he was sworn in, calling for kind of what Trump would call the deep state or the swamp, calling for the bureaucrats to do everything they could to be a fly in the ointment and to keep his agenda from being fulfilled. So since they're talking about a third term, and remember, it's the media focusing on it, so then they can continue to say, well, Trump's talking about it too much. There must be more to it. He doesn't care about the Constitution. There's a crisis. Well, just to add, I guess, fuel to the fire to make others mad, Interior Secretary Doug Burgum said that he certainly believes there is room for President Donald Trump on Mount Rushmore. Laura Trump on Fox News asked Burgum, the Department of Interior is in charge of the National Park Service. The National Park Service is in charge of Mount Rushmore. A lot of people wonder, will we ever see President Trump's face on Mount Rushmore? What do you think? Burgum said, well, they certainly have room for it there. And this is according to The Hill. He added that there will be fireworks and other celebrations around July 4th, both at Mount Rushmore and across the country, to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the country's founding in 2026. It's not the first time the idea of placing President Trump alongside the former presidents on Mount Rushmore has been introduced. If you recall, someone who we mentioned earlier in the program, Representative Anna Paulina Luna, who just stepped down from the House Freedom Caucus, introduced legislation that would add Trump to Mount Rushmore after he started his second term in office. Also, recently, Representative Claudia Tenney proposed a bill that would establish Trump's birthday and Flag Day, or June 14th, as a public holiday. There you are. Okay. A couple other updates when we come back. Ooh, a lot of comments coming in. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
All isn't about the money or winning or losing. It's about the Mets. The Mets. Love the Mets. It's all about the Mets on WJKP, your local New York Mets station. Make sure you don't miss a home run and tune into WJKP 48.2 to watch the New York Mets this MLB season. Brought to you by your local Nissan dealers.
Let's go, Mets!
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDC. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So many comments to get to. Comment from the first viewer: why should Trump settle for a third term of president when he could attain real dictatorial power after 2028? Just have President Vance appoint him to some lower federal court. I like what you're insinuating there about the powers of the lower federal courts that we've been seeing very prevalent in the news, blocking somehow the president's agenda. So I like your statement. Thank you for that. Mark writes in, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. Yeah, Kid Rock was dressed like an American flag, and he sure was. He was decked out, and Trump wants them to think he is running for a third term to get them off track, a deflection. Well, that ties in with a comment from a different viewer than Mark, who writes, you got to love how Trump plays the media, a true artist. Yes, he definitely does know how to do that. A comment from another viewer, a huge thank you to Cory Booker. He is proving again how irrelevant Democrats are. Well, yeah, it also shows how really weak they are because he's seeing this as a sign of leadership, as being tough against Trump and Trump's agenda, when really, as I search his name, no updates on it. The only outlet that had anything even about it was CNN. I don't think that the protesters that we've been seeing on the street, and someone had commented that, and I think I got rid of it accidentally, that the protesters that we've been seeing on nearly a weekly basis, I don't think this does anything to quell their anger. Comment from another viewer that I forgot to read earlier on, and I apologize about that. How do protesters not digest the fact that Social Security is paying for a building they do not use? They're just protesting because it is what the left does. There were protests yesterday, I saw too. And then, of course, you have the violent, destructive Tesla protests, if you want to call them protests, that we've been seeing. But I want to give you a couple more updates. President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, who is a superstar in the Republican Party, he plans to meet with the police officers in Rochester, New York, who were scolded by leaders of the sanctuary city for assisting ICE agents. We brought that story to you quickly last week, where what had happened was ICE had essentially asked Rochester police for backup, so they helped, and then the mayor of the sanctuary city was scolding them, saying that's not who we are, essentially. Local cops were ripped for responding to the scene of an ICE operation last week and helping to get 8 suspected illegal migrants out of a van and into cuffs when they started resisting federal agents. Homan didn't say when he is planning to visit Rochester, but this is an exclusive at the New York Post. The former ICE chief's planned visit follows his recent private meeting with the president and lawyer of the local police union, the Rochester Police Locust Club, where he offered his unwavering support and encouragement to the men and women of the Rochester Police Department. I stand with the officers of the Rochester, New York Police Department that answer the emergency assistance call from the U.S. Border Patrol. That is the way it should be. Law enforcement officers should not be abandoned in the time of need because of politics. Sanctuary policies endangered our police and the public. Help is coming, he vowed. Now, the ICE arrests in Rochester are part of enhanced targeted operations in parts of New York to enforce U.S. immigration law. The local officers were called to the scene by federal agents who asked for emergency police assistance during the traffic stop. But local leaders were quick to condemn their own police force for stepping in to assist the feds. Democratic Mayor Malik Evans said city police officers do not help or participate in federal immigration activities. Police Chief David Smith said, from watching the body-worn camera footage, what is concerning to me is despite the fact that we were called, we went lights and sirens. We are not to be handcuffing subjects in those circumstances. We are not to be doing pat frisks on subjects, and we are absolutely not going to be detaining them or putting them into our cars. So Tom Homan vowing to visit with those police officers that were scolded in Rochester. Also, this is what I mean, and I know we talked about this extensively on the program, but with the Trump news cycle, there's so many things that if you don't save them to the side, they'll be buried on a website and you won't be able to find them later to bring up on the program this morning. It doesn't make it old news, hardly. It makes it about 12 hours old, a little bit longer than that. But something that was kind of pushed to the side after some other major stories like Trump saying he might run for a third term against Obama, as a viewer said, playing the media like a fiddle. There's also Kid Rock visiting the White House was a big topic. Elon Musk reveals Doge's new target. And we're going to talk about Doge and the attack on Teslas a little bit later on. Also an update on New York State's budget that I think you're going to find interesting. But so we found out Doge's new target. And that target, members of Congress who got strangely wealthy. The world's richest man is dying to figure out how lawmakers on Capitol Hill got, quote, strangely wealthy despite their somewhat modest public salaries. Speaking at a town hall, and you may have missed this, it actually, the town hall was on Sunday. This was reported on yesterday afternoon. Musk suggested that his team at Doge will investigate how certain members of Congress have achieved generational wealth. One attendee at the town hall had asked Musk if Doge had uncovered evidence of funds wired from the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, to Representative Maxine Waters, Senator Adam Schiff, and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. This is what Musk said, quote, they'll, meaning the government, send the money overseas to one NGO, that non-governmental organization. Then they'll go through a bunch of them, and then I'm highly confident that a bunch of that money then comes back to the U.S. and lands in the pockets of the people you just mentioned. But it doesn't go directly, but let's just say that there's a lot of strangely wealthy members of Congress where I'm trying to connect the dots of how do they become rich. Now, rank and file members of Congress are making about $174,000 annually. Last year, Musk helped kill legislation to raise congressional pay, then later supported an increase as means of fighting corruption. Scores of lawmakers who have spent decades in Congress are millionaires. Two of the wealthiest include former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who has a net worth of about $250 million, and Senator Rick Scott, whose personal fortune hovers around $552 million. Pelosi's wealth largely comes from her and her venture capitalist husband, Paul's lucrative investments in companies like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Netflix. Now, I'm not going to go through each person and each of the rich politicians, but that is apparently Doge's next target. Members of Congress who got strangely wealthy. I think many people would say about time. So that's why you may have missed it if you blinked, as is the case during the media cycle of a Trump administration. We have quite a few other, I do have a couple college updates when it comes to anti-Semitism on college campuses. Quite a few things here about New York as well, and some general statements about Doge and what the Trump is doing behind the scenes. As we mentioned earlier, Cory Booker is apparently on it's not officially a filibuster, but he is on a long-winded speech. Last we know, he's about 11 and a half hours in. If he is not, I can't find the coverage to see if he's still at it, giving a speech, I guess, to prove that he's a leader in the Democrat Party. I'm not really sure what this accomplishes, but I think they're trying for anything. Chuck Schumer, specifically, they're all trying for anything to show their supporters, to show Democrats that they are trying. I don't know how this fights Trump, but that's the theory. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Your tap water is delicious.
I know, right? It's this Culligan Smart drinking water system.
What do you think is going on in there?
I'm smelling a touch of chlorine.
Yeah, I'm detecting some PFAS.
I'm also getting notes of lead.
Perfection.
Sending it up.
Here we go.
Certified to reduce more than 70 contaminants. It's like having your own team of water experts. See the smart difference at Culligan.com.
If you're looking for home security, you get more from Vivint than anyone else. Vivint is ranked #1 for home security by Forbes and SafeWise.com. Only Vivint leads the industry in every security category, including cameras with crime-deterring technology, car protection, and 30 days of continuous video recording. Call now and you'll get free professional installation, $200 off your initial order, and 0% APR financing for 60 months. You get all this, plus superior customer service and 24/7 professional monitoring for as little as $1 a day. Don't take chances with your family's safety. There's Vivint, and then there's everyone else. Call now to get free professional installation, $200 off your initial order, and 0% APR financing for 60 months. Vivint. Smarter security, superior customer service. For your free, no-obligation quote, call
800-840-7812. That's 800-840-7812.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon.
Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go through some viewer comments. Farmer John here. Well, hi, Farmer John. What do you know options on boater certification for all in New York State starting this year? Great question. We talked with Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard. You do have to have your license. It doesn't matter how long you've been manning a boat, even if it's your whole life, because even the sheriff said he has his whole life and he had to take the class. Steuben County, I want to say it's once a month. They have the boater safety course. I know there are options. That's free. I know there are options online that cost a little bit of money. And you sit there and you watch a video and then you get your certification. So that's some options. That's really all I know, but you legally cannot take the boat out on the water as the weather hopefully breaks here pretty soon unless you have that certification. So thank you for asking. Comment from I hope that helps, but thank you, Farmer John. Comment from a different viewer. Considering the TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, going on these days, I don't think it's a good idea at this time. Such talk only fans the flames. What is that in reference to? What, Trump talking about a third term? Now, the White House does plan, this is a quick update, the White House does plan to take over the press room seating arrangement. This has historically been done by the White House Correspondents Association, but now they are going to take over the seating arrangements themselves, and it's being speculated the sort of legacy media will not have those sweetheart seats right up front, that they may be pushed farther back in the arrangement. Priority seating gives reporters more face time with the White House press secretary, making them more likely to get picked for questions and featured on television. Plans have already been formalized for a fundamental restructuring of the briefing room based on metrics more reflective of how media is consumed today. And a lot of the legacy media have really gotten kind of used to this special treatment, being up front, being closer, getting more interaction with the press secretary. So this is just kind of knocking them down a peg, if you will. The new briefing room layout will include journalists from TV, print, and digital outlets, including social media influencers and newer organizations like Axios and Punchbowl. The White House and White House Correspondents Association did not immediately respond to a request for comment, but the White House officials told Axios the goal isn't merely favorable coverage, it's truly an honest look at consumption of the outlet's coverage. Influencers are important, but it's tough because they aren't equipped to provide consistent coverage. So the ability to cover the White House is part of the metrics. There you are. That's just an update as we talk about the media. So let's talk about the kind of this anti-Semitism on college campuses, because there are quite a few updates on this. The Trump administration has launched a probe into Harvard and their $8.7 billion in grants. Wow. President Trump's anti-Semitism task force is probing more than $8.7 billion worth of multi-year federal grant commitments with Harvard University and its affiliates. The review will also extend to $255 million in contracts that Harvard has locked down with the federal government. This was an announcement by the Department of Education, which is a part of this anti-Semitism task force. And I do have an update on Columbia as well. Linda McMahon, the education secretary, stated, Harvard has served as a symbol of the American dream for generations, the pinnacle aspiration for students all over the world to work hard and earn admission to the storied institution. Harvard's failure to protect students on campus from anti-Semitic discrimination, all while promoting divisive ideologies over free inquiry, has put its reputation in serious jeopardy. Harvard can right these wrongs and restore itself to a campus dedicated to academic excellence and truth-seeking, where all students feel safe on its campus. Monday's announcement comes after fellow Ivy League school Columbia effectively caved earlier this month to Trump's demands to crack down on anti-Semitism. Well, they caved on paper. I mean, they said they were going to cave. We know then the president, who is now ousted, stepped down, the interim president, said to the faculty who were outraged that they were going to try to end these anti-Semitic practices. She downplayed what they would actually do for the Trump administration, and that came back to haunt her. Now, the Harvard president, Alan Garber, published a letter to the community late last night admitting that President Donald Trump was right about the pervasiveness of anti-Semitism on the university's campus, stating he himself had experienced anti-Semitism directly. Garber's acknowledgement of anti-Semitism being present on Harvard's campus came in a letter to the Harvard community in which he responded to the Trump administration's reviewing $9 billion worth of federal grants and contracts. $9 billion. Unbelievable. While Harvard's recent actions to curb institutionalized anti-Semitism, though long overdue, are welcome, there's much more than the university must do to retain the privilege of receiving federal taxpayers' hard-earned dollars. Josh Grunbaum, who serves as a senior official in the General Services Administration, explained. Earlier today, the federal government's task force, this is Garber now, the president of Harvard, the federal government's task force to combat anti-Semitism issued a letter putting at risk almost $9 billion in support of research at Harvard and other institutions, including hospitals in our community. If this funding is stopped, it will halt life-saving research and imperil important scientific research and innovation. We fully embrace the important goal of combating anti-Semitism, one of the most insidious forms of bigotry. Urgent action and deep resolve are needed to address this serious problem that is growing across America and around the world. It is present on our campus. I have experienced anti-Semitism directly, even while serving as a president, and I know how damaging it can be to a student who has come to learn and make friends at a college or university. So admitting, and that may be getting a little bit of ahead of the curve, as signaling that, no, we will work with you, whether or not they actually will, or if they pull kind of a Columbia scenario. But realizing they let the students and the faculty run amok for too long, that it got out of control. Now they realize there are consequences. Now the students may not realize that, or the faculty, because the faculty has tenure. They don't have to worry. The students have never really got punished for this destruction and this intimidation of Jewish students and the anti-Semitism. So they feel like a spoiled child, that they can get away with anything. I think some of the grown-ups in the room now realize, we let this get out of hand. But again, there'll be faculty that have no worries. They're in their bubble. And there'll be students that still believe there'll be no punishment. But if that $9 billion goes away, there will definitely be punishment. But I have a couple other things on anti-Semitism on college campuses. We do have some New York State issues. Boy, we are going fast this morning. Keep those comments coming in. Keep those waves coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his arm.
cameras everywhere. You can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDC. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment, just a simple comment from a viewer. Good morning. Well, hey, good morning to you as well. Thank you for writing in, and thank you for the wave. Comment from Mark. I knew it was coming. The Democrats did too. Finally, Doge will show us how corrupt the Democrats are. And this is in reference to Elon Musk saying essentially that Doge's new target is these politicians who have become, what was it, weirdly wealthy, strangely wealthy. I think it was only a matter of time before Doge would set their sights there. Another comment, isn't it crazy how Democrats spent $1 billion like it was $1? I know, when you start seeing the money thrown around on college campuses, it's amazing. For instance, the Trump administration is pausing $210 million in federal funding to Princeton University as it probes anti-Semitism. A Trump administration official saying Princeton has perpetrated racist and anti-Semitic policies. Now, last year, the Anti-Defamation League gave Princeton an F grade for the way it handles anti-Semitism on college campuses. Now, Columbia, where much of the focus has been, we saw the encampments at Columbia. We saw really an administration not willing to do anything, in many instances encouraging the anti-Semitism, encouraging the destruction, encouraging the intimidation of Jewish students. They face new troubles. And this was predicted on this program quite some time ago, that their brand has been tarnished, that students are not accepting the offers coming from Columbia. And we had said this at the time of the encampments last year, where imagine you don't participate, obviously, in these protests, these anti-Semitic, anti-American protests, but you graduate nonetheless from Columbia. You go out into the real world, you offer them your resume, and that boss says, I don't have time to look in to see if you were one of these protesters. I don't have time to check social media to see if you're going to be flying the Hamas flag. So we've got a lot of other people that we can look at. Columbia's brand has been tarnished, and we said it from the beginning. It does not come with that level of respect that a degree from Columbia may have had at one time. College acceptance letters are rolling in, and suddenly some applicants don't even want to hear from Columbia. An admissions consultant who helped 10 clients get accepted to the Ivy League schools class of 2029 told the New York Post that not a single one plans to attend Columbia. This would not have been the case 3 years ago, said Christopher Rim. The actual brand has been tarnished, meaning the brand or the level of respect that comes with a degree from Columbia. It's quite the opposite now. It has kind of a negative connotation because of how prevalent the anti-Semitism has become. As for September's incoming freshman class, Rim said, I think it's going to be the students who didn't get in anywhere else. Kind of the last option if you wanted to be in an Ivy League and you had no other choice, as no one else accepted you. This comes as the school has mishandled pro-Palestinian, I don't like that the New York Post put that, the anti-Israel protests, and the Trump administration has threatened to pull some $400 million in federal grants. We know on Friday the interim president, Katrina Armstrong, resigned. Rim said there's so much up and down craziness, and Columbia doesn't seem stable at all. Instead, his clients who were accepted to Columbia during this year's regular admission cycle are headed to schools like NYU and Duke. An advisee chose Washington University in St. Louis over Columbia, Duke, and the University of Pennsylvania. A second Columbia-accepted client who grew up in New York City and wants to stay here opted for NYU. Another picked Duke. The rest are yet to select a school, but have already eliminated Columbia, said Rim. It's even extending to legacies. Ethan, a Manhattan High School senior and a client of this group that RIM runs, was accepted to Columbia, which both parents graduated from. We are hopeful that the new president of Columbia would turn things around, which is why Ethan applied, said the mother. RIM talked the family out of applying to the Manhattan Ivy during the early decision round, which requires a binding commitment with acceptance. He would be taking a gap year now if he had applied early. All right. So their brand has been tarnished at Columbia. We got a couple other quick updates on this. Couple updates overall. We got to take our last break of this hour. Get those comments in. Man, we are moving fast. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
In today's world, securing your business is more important than ever. Protected with Boss Security's state-of-the-art alarm systems. When seconds matter, trust the experts. Boss Security is proud to safeguard local businesses across the Twin Tiers. Contact Boss Security today.
Are you having trouble hearing your TV or listening to conversations in loud spaces? Then it might be time to consider Nano hearing aids. Don't mistake Nanos for cheap amplifiers. Nanos are FDA-registered OTC hearing aids, which means no more having to go to a doctor and spend thousands. Nano hearing aids are now offering $100 off through this special TV offer. Order right now and get 2 CIC rechargeable hearing aids for only $297. And if you're not happy, return them for a full refund.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife Catherine.
Every day, Judge Mathis presides.
Don't you ever form your mouth to talk to me like that.
Is another day when someone gets what they deserve.
What's wrong with you?
Mathis Court with Judge Mathis.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, wrapping up hour number 1. Ken wrote in a great comment. We'll get to that in the next hour, Ken. I just don't have time. I don't want to have to breeze through it. We'll read it at the top of the hour. The viewer who said that they don't think with Trump derangement syndrome it's a good idea at this time and it would fan the flames, that was in reference, because it got back to me here, that was in reference to putting Trump's face on Mount Rushmore. Thank you. I just mentioned that because it's very much like running for a third term. The media focuses on these things because it's really great headlines for them. And then they say that's all he wants to talk about. And it just, to your point, it does sort of fan the flames for many. But we were talking about Columbia. Just quickly, Elise Stefanik already doesn't like the new president. Yes, there is a new president at Columbia after Armstrong resigned yesterday, 2 days ago. Claire Shipman is only days into her job as acting president of Columbia University, but is already being targeted by a prominent House Republican, none other than Elise Stefanik, who unfortunately would have done a great job, but no longer the ambassador to the UN, having to return to the House because the votes were needed. Well, in a private message, Miss Shipman, back in December of 2023, said that all of this anti-Semitism, all these anti-Semitism hearings in Washington in regards to the colleges and universities was Capitol Hill nonsense. Elise Stefanik saying it's already come out that she has criticized and belittled the House investigation and the accountability measures and has failed to protect Jewish students. It's untenable for her to be in this position. And I think it's only going to be a matter of weeks before she's forced to step down as well. Yes, she does very much have that mindset that many on college campuses do, that they're kind of in this bubble. So everything, in this case, Capitol Hill nonsense, well, it costs a lot of people their jobs. Elise Stefanik did a wonderful job in those hearings. That's why we thought, and I believe she would have been great at the UN. Stefanik saying 2 presidents later, here we are. They will be on to yet another Columbia president very, very soon after this one. They still don't get it. She wrote that last April when Miss Shipman testified alongside Dr. Shafiq at the committee hearings into anti-Semitism. Ms. Shipman had cheered in the back room about how it was going so well for them. That might have just been not able to read the room. All right. Our number one is in the books. Boy, where does the time go here on Frankly Speaking? We've got 1 hour left together, a couple of New York State updates when we come back, reading your comments as well. So stay with us and join us for hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his arm.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Well, it's hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting loudly and proudly from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. We got a lot of great comments coming in. We'll get to those in just a moment. We are going to talk about some New York State issues. We also have quite a bit about President Trump to play catch up on. No word yet if Cory Booker is still giving his... It's not a filibuster, but his speech to prove, well, as one viewer said, his relevance, but prove that they are fighting Trump. I'll try to keep you updated on that. All right, let's go through some comments. Good morning. Well, hey, good morning. Just a comment regarding the comment that as a result of losing federal funding, medical research will suffer, etc. That's normally their go-to. It's very much like when Doge starts talking about looking at waste, fraud, and corruption, and what's the first thing the media and the left does? They say, well, they're going after your Social Security. They're going after your Medicare. They're going after your Medicaid, trying to scare you because it's just not the case. Same here. They always suggest that it's the worst part. It's not the professor who's been there 100 years who's getting paid way too much. But I'll continue with what this viewer had to say. For the last 50 or 60 or so years, a lot of money has been thrown at cancer research, for example. But the fact is, as far as I know, the treatment for cancer has remained the same for the last 50 or 60 years, namely radiation and chemotherapy. So how would research be compromised when at face value it appears that we are just throwing good money after bad money? And I would suggest that some unscrupulous researchers are getting rich. When you start looking at some of these numbers, there's a lot of people getting rich off of this. You're exactly right. There are a lot of people behind the scenes. And remember that they're in such a bubble, they're really, as a rule, untouchable. And this is why I talk about the professors who've only ever really lived in academia their whole life, having went through the education system and then moved on to become a teacher. They're surrounded by yes people their whole life. These students, they have to follow their every word. And they've got tenure, so they have no worries. They can push radical ideas like anti-Semitism, anti-American protest. And so very similar to what you're talking about, there are people behind the scenes making a lot of money off of you and I, and you wonder what is actually being accomplished behind the scenes. All right, Ken writes in, Trump is a master of manipulation. With the legacy media, he learned from his first term that they will take anything that he says, then twist and turn it to try and paint him in a bad light. Sometimes it's not even what he says, right, Ken? Sometimes it's the thoughts that they put in his mind. It'll be, well, Trump really means this, or Trump's going to do this. But I'll continue. He knows that he can't stop their attacks, so he uses the scattergun approach to keep the legacy media off balance, throwing out lots of ideas, some plausible and some on the verge of plausibility. With tariffs, he is putting on draconian and reciprocal tariffs to make the point that America can charge exorbitant rates, or the same rates too. The end result will be that our trading partners will realize that he is serious about fair trade, and they will decide to reduce or eliminate the tariffs that they charge us. And tomorrow is that big announcement from Trump, and we'll find out exactly what it all entails on what he is calling Liberation Day. Continuing with what Ken had to say. With the Panama Canal, we gave Panama the Canal away for a song, with the understanding that we would get preferential treatment on access and price. Panama decided not to honor that agreement, and Trump is just flexing the muscles of the most powerful nation on earth to get them to comply. I could go on and on talking about what I think Trump's reasoning is behind the comments he makes: third term, annexing Greenland, making Canada a 51st state, developing the Gaza Strip, bombing Iran, etc. The bottom line is that America is showing its strength. The days of caving to other countries in the world has ended, at least for the next 4 years. Thank you, Ken. And on that, Greenland's new prime minister exploded at Donald Trump, saying, "We don't belong to you. Let me make this clear. The U.S. is not getting that. We don't belong to anyone else. We decide our own future. We must not act out of fear. We must respond with peace, dignity, and unity. And it's through these values that we must clearly, and calmly show the American president that Greenland is ours." I was like that yesterday. That's how it is today. It was like that yesterday. That's how it is today. And that's how it will be in the future. Not happy. Not happy. Also, to Ken's point, and this gave me an excuse to bring up a story I wasn't sure we'd have an opportunity to get to this morning, but it's in reference to the Panama Canal. And the New York Post editorial board says China's efforts to stop the sale of a company that manages Panama Canal ports is proving President Trump is dead right about the strategically vital waterway. Trump and company warned that Beijing's pressure on Hong Kong-based CK Hutchinson, which operates 2 of the ports, would wind up blocking U.S. military and commercial shipping through the canal in the event of a U.S.-China conflict. Such a national security threat puts the United States and the West in an untenable position, so the president vowed to take back control of the canal. Hutchinson then moved to sell its canal operations to a group led by U.S.-based BlackRock, a win for Trump, in a deal that was to be signed Wednesday. But a Chinese state-owned Hong Kong news outlet accused Hutchinson of betraying the Chinese people. Last week, Chinese officials froze any new deals between state-owned firms and businesses tied to Hutchinson's primary owner, Li Ka-shing. Then, Beijing, last Friday, scuttled the signing for now as it announced a government review of the deal. Bottom line, China's rulers look determined to retain control of the strategically critical maritime conduit, whether to threaten U.S. access to the key shipping lane or to ensure it will remain open to Chinese vessels no matter what. Beijing might stand down when it realizes its heavy hand in Hong Kong's commercial market will frighten more firms out of doing business there. Yet another step toward killing the golden goose of what has been a global financial center. China's leaders and their fourth-rate Hong Kong minions have already gone a long way down the road, with crushing of democratic dissent, the closing of Hong Kong's popular Apple Daily, a publicly traded company, and the clumsy kangaroo court prosecution of its chief, Jimmy Lai, and several of its employees, all proving that what once made the city a great place to do business, the rule of law, is dead. If Beijing does try to permanently block the Hutchinson sale, it'll definitely speed the business flight from Hong Kong and may still lose the canal port since Panama's government could force the issue. Meanwhile, it's already proved Team Trump's point. If China cares so much about who controls the canal, so should we. Thank you, Ken, for giving me an opportunity to bring that piece from the New York Post editorial board. We do have a couple of quick New York State issues, and then we're going to go into a few things that the Democrats are doing. We mentioned this morning that Cory Booker is on a sort of filibuster, though it's not an actual filibuster because there's no nomination he's blocking or no vote he's blocking. But he's giving a speech to show, and I don't know who he's showing it to because the only place I saw the news was at CNN, far left CNN. But he's trying to show his true leadership in taking on Donald Trump. We're going to tell you a little bit about what some other Democrats' ideas are on what that looks like. Also, obviously, a few things here about Doge and Tesla. But first, Hochul is willing to hold up the New York State budget, quote, as long as it takes to pass discovery law changes and involuntary commitment, according to her aide. Her principles out of this budget are steadfast, and there are things that she just can't compromise on, said Budget Director Blake Washington. We'll take as long as it takes to deliver. Now, we know today is officially the deadline. Obviously, going to blow through that. We talked with Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski last week, and he said with 100% certainty, of course, there will not be a deal by April 1st. It was kind of mathematically impossible considering the Assembly wasn't even called back to Albany till today. Washington's comments to reporters signal that Hochul could be gearing up for a fight with lawmakers. The problem with that is she normally caves. Now, today is the budget deadline. We'll see. Now, last year's budget, just to keep you updated, was finalized on April 20th. And Hochul has held up the state budget over public safety policy before. Now, this year, lawmakers are scheduled to skip town for a 2-week break, coinciding with Passover beginning April 11th. They'll go without pay until the entire budget is passed. Hochul and lawmakers also haven't ruled out returning to Albany in a special session later this year, a prospect raised by the likelihood of cuts to state cash being handed down from Washington. Yes, remember in these budgets, they are still budgeting as if they are going to get a huge chunk from Washington, and that I don't know how you can bank on that, no pun intended, how you can think that money is coming in. But progressive groups, including the Legal Aid Society, are putting the squeeze on New York lawmakers to reject Governor Hochul's proposals on involuntary commitment and discovery reform and helping hold the state budget past its April 1st deadline. And this is very often where Governor Hochul starts to cave. When the far left starts going after her, starts kind of being a monkey wrench, if you will, in the plans. The budget impasse comes after leftist groups such as the largely taxpayer-funded nonprofit, mounted a pressure campaign involving well-paid backroom lobbying in Albany and even a high-profile think piece from author John Grisham. Representatives for the Legal Aid Society blamed Governor Hochul for the expected delay and applauded lawmakers in the state assembly and Senate for, quote, holding the line. Rolling back discovery reforms should not and must not be the reason New York State's budget does not get passed promptly, said the statement from Legal Aid. Governor Hochul's insistence on exploiting the budget process to push through policies, including repealing New York's modernized and widely successful discovery statute, is misguided and delays the critical fiscal policies New Yorkers need, especially now, as Albany faces a loss of federal support. State Senator George Borrello argued that legal aid has a conflict of interest in its opposition to the discovery laws, which were passed in 2019 and require prosecutors to turn over evidence to defendants within 20 or 35 days after arraignment. Quote, we have district attorneys' offices that are starved, underfunded, understaffed, but we're going to make the Legal Aid Society's job easier with the discovery law. Now, this organization, Legal Aid Society, bills itself as the largest, most influential social justice law firm in New York City, and it helps 2 million city residents every year through its defense services. The organization has received $290 million from the state to represent in New Yorkers since 2012. I don't want to go through this whole group, but what we're seeing here is a push by these far left groups to go against some of the policies that people are really demanding, which, again, discovery law, involuntary commitment. We've talked about mental health issues in New York State extensively. The involuntary commitment would prove a huge boom for public safety. Now, according to, where is it here? Graham, I don't know where the first name is. Graham, who's a part of the Innocent Project, said passage of Hochul's proposal would be an affront to due process as it will risk that more evidence will be withheld, resulting in the likelihood that more innocent people will be unjustly convicted because a prosecutor focused on proving their case decided it was not necessary to disclose such information. So this is when we run into troubles with Governor Hochul, because when the far left starts putting the pressure campaign on her, she normally caves. And there's also the issue that people are making with the involuntary commitment, but also the discovery laws as well. So again, Governor Hochul's aide saying they'll take as long as it needs, as long as they need to get this through, and there will not be a budget until. Now, there's another update that we'll get to on New York State here in just a moment. We don't have a ton on New York State, mind you. Just a few things that I think is worth mentioning. And then we'll get back to the national stuff. Read your comments. Keep those comments and keep those waves coming in. And we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox.
It's a problem. People all across America are dealing with fitted sheets that won't stay in place. You pull, you tighten, you tuck, but they still pop off. It's so frustrating. Not anymore. This is Bed Bunny, the advanced fitted sheet with a built-in compression cord that locks the sheet all around the mattress. All you do is replace your old fitted sheet with a Bed Bunny and pull. Then watch as the built-in compression cord hugs every side, every corner of your mattress like magic and automatically locks into place with a grip that won't slip no matter what.
I'm a restless sleeper, so my sheets pop off constantly and I hate it. People swear that these sheets have a grip that never slips. Whoa, that grip is solid. It seems like these actually work. I can't wait to sleep like a baby.
Crafted from copper soft fabric, Bed Bunny sheets offer luxurious comfort for the ultimate night's sleep. Plus, they're infused with real copper, which helps kill odor-causing bacteria, keeping your sheets fresh.
These are hands down the softest sheets I've ever tried.
It fits perfectly, even with my mattress topper, and the corners never pop off, even when my daughter jumps on the bed.
When it's time to wash, just release the lock and remove the sheets.
It comes off as easy as it went on, and the entire thing, bunny and all, can be thrown right in the washing machine.
Bed Bunny sheets are perfect for all types of beds, RVs, boats, adjustable beds, even air mattresses, and so much more. Order your Bed Bunny sheet for only $29.99, complete with a full 90-day sleep guarantee. But hurry, rising costs mean this could be your last chance to lock in this low price before it goes up. Inventory is extremely limited, and there's a strict limit of 3 per order at this price. So don't wait. Secure yours while supplies last. Order now.
Call 1-800-699-3496. That's 1-800-699-3496 or visit buybedbunny.com. So call 1-800-699-3496 or visit buybedbunny.com now. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer: I just can't wrap my mind around the fact that the mainstream media is so pro-Democrat. So I have to wonder if all the unaccounted for tax dollars are winding up in the pockets of these people. To me, this makes sense when you think about who the big donors are. Well, and it does send some red flags when you see who is fighting it tooth and nail, Doge, doesn't it? Doesn't it raise some questions anyway? Before we continue with our conversation on New York State issues, I did, and this is a local issue, I did want to mention that Cornell Cooperative Extension of Steuben County participated in the annual New York Agricultural Literacy Week, which was in the middle of March. This event celebrates New York agriculture by engaging elementary students with a specially selected book and hands-on activities. This year's featured book, The Pie That Molly Grew, by Sue Heavenrich, took students on an exciting journey from planting a single seed to harvesting a pumpkin and turning it into a delicious pie for a celebration of gratitude. They distribute 51 books to schools and public libraries throughout the county. And a highlight of the week, which this is a yearly tradition, was New York State Assemblyman Phil Palmisano participating and reading to over 70 students, inspiring young minds with the wonders of agriculture. And I wanted to, because they sent that to me, show you the pictures of Literacy Week. There's Phil reading to the kids. looks like a fun time, and what a great idea to highlight our agriculture in New York State. Okay. Now, according to, who's this? The Post, the New York Affordable Clean Power Alliance, the mouthpiece for the wind and solar industries, just came clean with a warning about the perils of Albany's plan to phase out fossil fuels. And if you recall, I mentioned this on the program yesterday, saying that it would be chaos, costly and chaos. Instead, state leaders mean to keep on pretending and so inflict billions in needless costs on utilities and taxpayers. The Alliance's latest report warns that the state's ambitious renewable targets pose clear threats to maintaining reliability. Maintaining reliability, meaning blackouts when electric demand soars. So you figure on the hottest days of the year, the coldest days of the year, when you need it most, that's when you could be without power. And we've said it before, leading to, unfortunately, death in many instances. Like the Post says, which could be in the dead of winter if the state succeeds in pushing everyone to depend on electric heat. The state's insane climate action plan is forcing the closure of reliable natural gas power plants, even as it's failing to replace them with enough expensive and less reliable solar and offshore wind installations. Less reliable, as the Alliance admits, renewables depend on weather conditions, making real-time supply and demand balancing more complex. Meanwhile, Hochul's Department of Environmental Conservation has announced that it won't be imposing the Cap and Invest program, which means added taxes on carbon fuels before 2027, when she'll have won or lost her next and likely last election. But New Yorkers are paying for this plan now in double-digit utility rate hikes. Hochul pretends it's not the climate mandates, ordering the Public Service Commission to investigate executive pay and bonuses at Con Edison and utilities, but she knows the truth. New York won't come close to its mandatory goal of slashing gas emissions by 40% by 2030, let alone achieving 100% zero carbon emission electricity by 2040. But the state will inflict needless expense until it faces up to that fact. It is beyond shameful that the state's leaders are fine with inflicting these ruinous expenses on the rest of us simply to save face for themselves. I thought that was a really good piece and a kind of an update from what we brought to you yesterday, saying that it'll delve into chaos. Because if you think about it, think about the few times there's been storms this winter where we've had people write in and say that they haven't had power for 24 hours. Well, imagine it's your heat, especially on those very cold days. You could be talking about frozen pipes. You could be talking about, obviously, real health concerns. And the technology, I know we sound like a broken record on this program. The technology just is not there. The grid cannot handle this. And they can keep their head in the sand and hope something changes between now and then. But that's clearly not the case. And in the meantime, it's costing us more and more essentially every day. And that's one of the reasons why there's been so much outrage lately at NYSEG. And we saw they weren't a public forum per se, but having that conversation with a NYSEG representative. And I've heard from many of you that are outraged. Well, a lot of this is because of Governor Hochul's green policies. On the other side of that coin, when we talk about green policies, let's look at the federal government, not the state, but the federal. As we hear from EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin. Now, he knows what we're dealing with in New York, obviously a former congressman for the state of New York and a gubernatorial candidate in New York. Zeldin announced yesterday afternoon that the National Environmental Museum and Education Center, which opened last year under the Biden administration, will shutter after costing taxpayers millions to build and subsequently drew a lackluster number of visitors. Well, let me ask. So you don't have an opportunity this summer, but on your precious vacation time where you say, I want to take the family and go on a vacation, had it ever occurred to you to go to the National Environmental Museum and Education Center? According to the EPA, quote, the scarcely visited museum cost a whopping $4 million taxpayer dollars to build in accordance with Smithsonian standards and more than $600,000 annually to operate. He called the museum Biden's pet project, Biden EPA's pet project. It had less than 2,000 external visitors between May of 2024 and February of 2025. And while the museum was free, the cost to taxpayers per external visitor amounted to nearly $315 per person. So if you do the math on what it costs to build this museum, again, and you know this is getting the kids excited to go to a museum when it's called the National Environmental Museum and Education Center. So if you do the math, from opening till close, because they're shuttering the doors, it cost every taxpayers for every visitor that went to the museum $315. The EPA Museum opened in May of 2024 within the William Jefferson Clinton Federal Building, which is home to the EPA's headquarters and sits just blocks from the White House. A smaller EPA exhibit previously was showcased in a neighboring federal building ahead of the construction and opening of the National Environmental Museum and Education Center. Quote, from Love Canal and the founding of EPA more than 50 years ago to the historic funding of our Investing in America agenda, our new museum chronicles our nation's work to protect public health and the environment, a movement that has transcended political and geographic divides, said Biden-era EPA Administrator Michael Regan. Our work with state, local, and tribal partners has changed people's lives. It has restored our connection with the environment and our planet. It will ensure that future generations will continue to have clean air to breathe, safe water to drink, and clean land to live, work, and play on. Zeldin's EPA said the museum did not spotlight bipartisan achievements and efforts protecting America's health, but instead, quote, the Biden administration chose to curate the museum with a massive gap of recognition between 2014 and January of 2021. There is also a higher priority placed on Democrat administrations' work compared to Republican administrations. Biden's EPA favored the incorporation of a slew of environmental justice and climate change content to proliferate the fear-mongering tactics of the radical left instead of focusing on the statutory work EPA does daily to deliver clean air, land, and water to Americans. A breakdown of estimated annual costs to operate the museum: $123,766 in annual cleaning and landscaping. I'm not going to go through all of it. But it says here, Rod Law, Functional Government Initiatives Communication Director, said there is something ironic about the EPA wasting money on a museum about itself when it is supposed to be focused on toxic waste. Sadly, promoting special interest climate activism and growing the out-of-touch bureaucracy were hallmarks of the EPA and the Biden administration, and this museum was an unfortunate result of such policy. Administrator Zeldin closing it protects taxpayers, helps return the EPA to its statutory mission of protecting the environment, and abandons past dysfunction and bureaucratic self-promotion. So Lee Zeldin calling it a shrine to environmental justice and climate change, and it is now gone for good. So there goes all your summer plans. You can no longer take your vacation time and visit the Environmental Protection Agency Museum. That just sounds not only politically biased, of course, but horrendously boring. The National Environmental Museum and Education Center, gone for good. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We're running just a tad bit late. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen, and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his arm.
Cameras everywhere. You can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com.
The Big's website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
Thank you to Boss Security for bringing us that beautiful view of Marcus Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. We've got a few comments to get to. First up, Mark says, I'll never visit that museum. Yeah, you don't have a choice now. Lee Zeldin closing the doors. Here's an idea. Make it a Doge headquarters. There you go. Maybe a Doge museum. How about that? That would be a museum I would be more likely to attend. A comment from a different viewer. Oh, darn. And I have that #1 on my itinerary this summer for places to visit. I know. Sounds like you might have been the only person. If you look at the numbers, costing us $318 per person that visited since it opened in May of 2024, because not a lot of people visited. We do have a couple other comments that I missed coming back right from break. I will read them in the next segment. So, question for you. I don't know if you've been following it here at the local level. I kind of have, only because I work on Market Street. But about weekly, sometimes twice weekly, there are these protests. And the problem when you hold protests so frequently, the numbers start to dwindle. But they have had some pretty big turnout. They're anti-Musk, anti-Trump protests. And this is happening across the country. They're in that little bit of a growing pains area where there's a lot of people that want to take credit for this, that want to put their name on it. So you have kind of competing ideas. You have some competing groups trying to be the, quote, leader of this movement. And again, they're happening a lot, so I'm not sure how long, and maybe they only grow, but that does not seem to be anecdotally what I'm seeing. And then, of course, you have the people that are protesting, sometimes peaceful, sometimes not, when it comes to Tesla dealerships. Well, I think this is Vox. Yes, Vox, far left Vox. They asked the question, is a Democrat version of the Tea Party on its way? Now, I'm assuming some in this audience were members of the Tea Party movement at the time. I personally believe the Tea Party movement ultimately led to the election of Donald Trump. I believe that's the same group. But as I point out, I think there was too many hands in the pot, meaning too many people want to take credit for the Tea Party movement. So that's why it started to dwindle. I'm saying at the national level, not the local level. And I think that's why it started to dwindle. Not the numbers. People still believe the same thing. But just the confusion of so many protests, or, so many opportunities to protest, that eventually you say, okay, I have to live my life. But I always think that those same people that were at the Tea Party, not all of them, but ended up being the group, because it was a large group, the Tea Party, that ended up supporting Donald Trump and saying enough's enough. Because the Tea Party was the kind of group that they kept being told to us, the only way Republicans can win is if John McCain's our nominee. And then it's, the only way we can win is if it's Mitt Romney. And the Tea Party movement, which was huge, was saying we want a conservative. We don't want the rhinos. We want a conservative. And I believe the straw that broke the camel's back was really when they told us the only way we can win is if Jeb Bush gets the nomination. I think that's when former Tea Party members threw up their hands in the air and said, enough. I know he's unorthodox, but I'm going with a fighter and someone that's not going to just do the caving like a Mitt Romney did. But continuing. But if whatever this movement is, if this is the Democrats' kind of Tea Party, as Vox is claiming, do you think Vox will and others in the media will treat the same way as they treated the Tea Party? You know, labeling them domestic terrorists, calling them conspiratorial, racist. They treated the Tea Party very poorly. Just 44% of Democrats are satisfied with the job Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is doing, and 54% are satisfied with House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and the party's overall favorability is tanking. What was the number? Around 27%. That rage isn't going away anytime soon. The base looked ready to riot in March after Senate Democrats led by Schumer passed a continuing resolution. Many in the base saw the showdown as a red line, a waste opportunity for their congressional representatives to obstruct Republicans and Trump. Yeah, I mean, even Nancy Pelosi coming out after Schumer saying, I don't do anything for nothing, which is essentially what Schumer did in her mind. But that's why you have kind of this weak display going on right now with Cory Booker giving this hours-long speech to, I guess, prove that he's fighting. The last time a party base was this mad at its leadership, it was 2009. And movement Republicans were furious at party leaders for losing to former President Barack Obama, bailing out Wall Street, and failing to stop the Affordable Care Act. And that started out as a base rage grew into a full-on inter-party revolution. The Tea Party reorganized the Republican Party on its own terms. But are Democrats about to face their own Tea Party moment? And the rage that the base is feeling right now, is it going to lead the party down the same path that Republicans went on during the Obama era? And it goes into the Tea Party, and it still tries to demean what the Tea Party did and accomplished. Now, the original unifying theme was an acronym, Taxed Enough Already, T, a conservative call for less government spending, lower taxation, and strict interpretations of the Constitution. Now, they said what makes 2025 feel like 2009 and 2014 is the level of inter-party anger and the unifying of the party around a shorthand slogan, do something. And that is a term they are using quite frequently. The polling data, for example, does reveal some parallels between 2009, 2014, and today. Self-identified Democrats now view their party about as negatively as Republicans did from 2009 to 2015. As co-founder Lakasha Jain said in a recent post, the Democratic approval data is unlike any in recent history, and it isn't a case of bitter, disaffected partisans reacting to a loss in the last election. They noted that this year is different from the last two times Democrats and Republican bases had to reckon with presidential losses, and then they go on and give the whole history. But how does this moment differ from the original Tea Party? 2025 is a very different moment of rage. Today's Democrat base anger isn't primarily ideological. There's no policy, agenda, candidate, or unifying principle that is rallying Democrats against their party leaders like it did for conservative Republicans. The closest is anger at Schumer specifically. And while anti-establishment, anti-incumbent feeling does define this discontent, it's mostly around the loose idea of resisting harder or fighting back against Trump and doing something. What 2018 did it was a much more diverse, anyway, this goes on too much. But at least at the state and local level, this kind of younger energy is emerging. Amanda Lippman, the co-founder of the Progressive Run for Something candidate recruitment group, told the author at Vox that since the shutdown quandary, younger people have been leading this kind of prospective candidate looking to run. And this is all in reference to, yes, you guessed it, potentially an AOC run for president, or at least an AOC run against Schumer. They are trying to make her, and so many others have been doing this, kind of the face of this resistance movement, which means resist Trump, of this do something movement, believing that the representatives aren't doing enough. In Schumer's case and with Cory Booker today, very much using pre-Trump tactics in a post-Trump era. And that is not successful. As we've seen, Cory Booker thinking that maybe he will emerge as some great leader because he's giving hours-long speeches on the floor talking about how bad Trump is. Chuck Schumer at that rally that was against Musk, chanting "We will win" and raising up the person next to him's arm, saying "We will win" after they just had the historic landslide losses. But there are other groups that are kind of taking this place. Oh my goodness, we're running late. We're going to talk about that when we come back. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
What better way to start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Hey.
Hey, we need a change.
Yeah. Remember when we talked about becoming Milton Hershey Schoolhouse parents? Well, what do you think? Did you see this?
Kids, we're moving to Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Will we go to school here?
You'll go to a local school, but we'll be living on campus with the students whose lives we'll be helping.
We'll have new friends?
Yeah, we'll have a whole community to help us along the way, too.
We'll have the opportunity to help others together.
It's a career unlike any other, where family is part of the experience. Become house parents at Milton Hershey School.
Invite you to discover what makes our school community so special, including the fact that everything, top-notch education, housing, healthcare, food, clothing, technology, and much more is provided to our students at no cost to our families. This is thanks to the generosity of our founders, chocolate maker Milton S. Hershey and his wife, Catherine.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Sorry, I was looking at a comment here. Brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. All right, we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. I got distracted. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a Tea Party that was associated with the Boston Tea Party? Yeah. Where either the Whigs or Tories morphed into the name. Note, I was never interested in history. Well, thank you. Well, the Tea Party, the more recent Tea Party, was obviously a conservative movement, but they wanted to have that connection to the Tea Party, being overtaxed and underrepresented. No taxation without representation, that idea. But the T, like I said, taxed enough already was a name, like the acronym, where T came from for Tea Party. I think this comparison to this new, whatever you want to call it, movement, this resistance to Trump, I don't see the complete connection there, meaning that this is kind of the Democrats' new Tea Party. But there is something to be said there about the anger at their leadership, the people on the ground's anger at people like Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. Ken writes in, did you know that Hochul's net worth is about $12 million and she has a foundation that, as far as I can tell, she takes income from? Over the past 3 years, Hochul's foundation has secured over $1.65 million from USAID to support LGBTQ initiatives and diversity in women's sports. I wonder how much of that went into her pockets. Thanks, Ken. Oh, another comment. Hey, Ken, I hope you're listening. I forgot to ask you to thank Ken once again for me, and if he's able to watch the Sunday morning shows, then I think he could recommend a great therapist. Maybe his, as the more I watch the Teslas burning and the outrage by the intolerant left, the more I'm thinking I need one. Thank you. Any good recommendations, Ken? Now, Pramila Jayapal, Representative Jayapal, said on MSNBC's, this is kind of tying in with this kind of movement within the Democrat Party. She was on the Rachel Maddow show. And she was talking about training Americans to help take down a potential dictatorship of President Donald Trump. At her resistance lab training, Jayapal said, quote, "It appears that the Trump administration is willing to ignore judicial decisions. And so that brings us to you in this room. It brings us to the people that is really the bulwark, the wall against the crumbling of democracy." So Rachel Maddow said, "Help me understand the idea of the resistance lab," that's what it's called, "and what you're talking about in practical terms at these events." Jayapal said, "Yeah, I mean, what we've decided is that we really need to help Americans understand what happens when democracies fall, when dictators take over. We've been pretty complacent in America. We haven't had to really deal with this in any real way. And now I think people need to understand what are the lessons from other countries and working with experts who have studied democratic backsliding in countries around the world and the resistance movement that emerged to take on that democratic backsliding. We've developed a curriculum where we help people understand how do you go after the pillars of support. Not necessarily the person at the top, but the pillars of support that allow that person to continue to have power. And how do you shift allies from being sort of passive opponents to being active supporters of taking down a dictatorship? So that is sort of the talking points now. This is why we're seeing the obviously the fanning of the flames, why we're seeing so much destruction at Tesla dealerships. Is because of rhetoric, dangerous rhetoric like that. But the more dangerous they become with the rhetoric, the more fundraising that takes place, the more support they have from kind of the far left resistance movement. So that's why you see this sort of rhetoric in the news and in the media. James Carville, who, mind you, predicted that Kamala Harris would win the election, now says that Trump's administration collapsed even faster than he could imagine. This we ran out of time to tell you about this yesterday on yesterday's program, but James Carville, the Raging Cajun, you recall him, he was on CNN. He said, "I had no idea. I thought I'd have to wait longer for the imminent collapse. It happened even faster than I could imagine." Now, some would maybe suggest that this is wishful thinking for Mr. Carville. In a February op-ed, Carville advised the Democrat Party to play dead and wait for the collapse of the Trump administration. "Sometimes the most powerful thing that we can do is retreat on the immediate battlefield and advance in another direction. It won't take long. Public support for the administration will fall through the floorboards. It's already happening." Now, Smern Khan questioned Carville, wondering why it matters that Trump may be losing some approval numbers if Democrat approval ratings are some of the lowest they've ever been in modern history. Carville countered by saying that the left can take advantage of the moment either way. Well, first of all, this is a glorious opportunity for the Democratic Party to redefine itself, to take this as what it is. And apparently some people in the news media are not. It's the gravest crisis we've had in the United States in the last 80 years. He said that the Trump administration represented the end of the rule of law. We're looking at blockheads and buffoons running the country. So the man, and we have this on the conservative side sometimes as well, but the man who predicted Harris would win, now saying that Trump's administration is collapsed faster than even he could have imagined. But as Liz Peek said, and we're going to talk about it when we come back, Democrats are in panic mode as Elon Musk and Doge go public. And that's in reference to that great interview with Brett Baer with the Doge team. They don't know, the left does not know how to handle it. Democrats are facing their worst nightmare. Elon Musk, one of the smartest people on the planet, is revealing their dirty tricks. No wonder they're out to destroy him and his companies. And that's what we were talking about when they are protesting so much. It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder exactly what they're protesting for, who's making money from all of this. But we got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Anyone, anywhere can record crimes as they happen and we're going to watch them right here.
He just took his car.
With cameras everywhere, you can run, but you can't hide. Watch iCrime.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about we. Thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC, or visit our website at WYDC. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Couple comments from viewers. Ken writes in, he was talking about visiting down here on Market Street, getting a great meal. There's so many great options here on historic Market Street, so I understand that. Ken, and he said, we had them last Friday, and as we drove up Market Street, we saw you sitting at Big Fox's resolute desk, diligently working on the next day's agenda for Frankly Speaking. Yes, Ken, thank you very much. You should have honked, waved. Appreciate you driving by the resolute desk. I like that. It's not bad. Everything's right here. That's our studio. All right. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. What would be more fun? A day at the EPA Museum? Yeah. A front row seat at Cory Booker's presentation, or a medical procedure? We'll put it that way. I think you can assume which one this viewer may be referring to. Asking for a friend. The EPA Museum sounds so historically boring to me. I mean, the name of it, that it's almost like a new level of advertising that you're boring. And Cory Booker's presentation, I don't even know what to take that as. I mean, it's kind of a weak, pathetic display of leadership, or what he's trying to pass off as leadership. Comment from a different viewer. Even if the Democrat Party redefines itself, it will still remain philosophically the same, pure socialism. Thank you very much. Great comments coming in. I know I'm being a little wimp and not reading your full comment about what would be more fun, but I appreciate it. Procedure that you have to do after a certain age. I appreciate it. Musk shares mind-blowing chart showing millions of non-citizens given Social Security numbers under the Biden administration. Okay, this viewer says, I'll take the surgery caller. Okay. There you go. That would be the most fun out of those three. Okay. Thank you, viewer. Elon Musk shared a chart during a Get Out the Vote rally in Wisconsin, which he claims showed millions of non-citizens receiving Social Security numbers during Biden's tenure. The Sunday town hall garnered a lot of attention Monday over Musk's move to hand out that $1 million check. That's what's been getting the focus. But Musk saying, we start at the top of the system, mapping the whole system of Social Security to understand where all that fraud was. But this is what just jumped out at us. When we saw these numbers, we were like, what is this? And they had a chart showing the millions of non-citizens given Social Security cards. Now, we're talking about the Democratic Party. Just two quick things about Joe Biden. Coming from the new book, it's Amy Parnes, and it's the new book, Fight, Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House. We mentioned it last week. She said, quote, I think every Democrat has a story where they saw President Biden not in the best terms, and that Biden once couldn't remember who Representative Eric Swalwell was. So Chris Cuomo, yes, Chris Cuomo has a show, saying, do you believe that Democrats hid that Biden wasn't up to running again? Parnes said, I think every Democrat has a story, and we talk about some of that in here, where they saw President Biden not in the best terms. We detail, for instance, Congressman Swalwell, who was there looking at him. They came face to face at a congressional picnic, and the congressman had to cue Biden as to who he was. This was someone who ran against him in 2020. He's very vocal. He's out there. Someone like President Biden, in Biden's heyday, he would know who he was. He did not know. We have other details in the book about a makeup artist coming in on his international trip to kind of prep him before meeting with foreign leaders. We have all of these details in the book. Well, isn't it too little too late? I mean, yes, it's being reported on now, but why did these Democrats not do anything sooner? Well, actually, Seth Moulton, Democrat, saying Look, I was the third member of Congress, House, or Senate to publicly call for President Biden to step aside, but honestly, I wish I had been the first. I wish I had done it sooner. I think there's a lot of blame to go around here, but clearly what was going on in the White House was even worse than those of us in Congress knew from what we could see. So now everybody's trying to cover their you-know-what, and that's what we're seeing now. I would say a little, too late. But we got to take a short break. Stay with us. Wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Get your last minute comments in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
You don't have time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tubs and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Shell Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking, we're going to go through things kind of quickly here. A Colorado man being accused of firebombing a Tesla dealership in Colorado is facing federal charges, according to Attorney General Pam Bondi. Cooper Joe Frederick, 24 years old, was arrested in Plano, Texas on suspicion of attacking a Tesla dealership on March the 7th in Loveland, Colorado. Bondi said in a video message, "Let this be a warning. You can run, but you cannot hide. Justice is coming." Now, we also learn, as we talk about justice, ICE has arrested 113,000 and deported over 100,000 since Trump's return as president. And it maintains its promise to boo illegal migrants, alleged gang members. This coming from a source telling the New York Post. ICE officials have made 113,000 arrests and carried out north of 100,000 deportations since Trump's January 20th inauguration. He's doing what he was voted in to do, point blank, said the ICE officer. It wasn't immediately clear how many detainees are convicted criminals, the status of their case, and their national origins, though sources believe the majority are being removed to Mexico. Also, where do we want to go from here? Did you see, I meant to mention this on yesterday's program, and I don't know what you'll think about this, but RFK Jr. Taking a dig at the West Virginia governor. He was with West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey. And something came up about Governor Morrisey's weight. RFK Jr. said, "I said to Governor Morrisey, the first time I saw him, I said, you look like you ate Governor Morrisey." Which actually drew quite a bit of laughter from the audience. The joint event in Martinsburg was to promote the Kennedy's Make America Healthy Again agenda, which is working to purge the U.S. food supply of additives, dyes, and other unhealthy ingredients. He told the governor, "I'm going to put him on a really rigorous regime. We're going to put him on a carnivore diet. Raise your hand if you want Governor Morrisey to do a public weigh-in once a month." Wow. Not pulling any punches. All right, I guess we're out of time. Tomorrow is the big day, the Liberation Day. and that speech from the Rose Garden. So we'll be talking about that. We'll let you know, I guess, if we can find it reported anywhere, how long Cory Booker's speech was or is, if it's still going. It'll be going on just about 13 hours now, if he's still out there giving this speech to prove that he's the leader of the Democrat Party and he's resisting Trump the most. I don't know. Again, it was reported on at CNN. Unless you're an avid C-SPAN viewer, I'm guessing you probably did not know it was happening. But we'll give you an update, if I remember to give you an update on that tomorrow. Thank you for all the comments. We're going to talk with Chris Callis tomorrow about the upcoming job fair. Excuse me. I always say that. College fair coming up on April 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. That's Wednesday, April 30th. We're going to talk to him about that on the program tomorrow. So we look forward to that. You won't want to miss it. You want to tune in every weekday morning for guests like that. We do have, I don't have my calendar in front of me, but we do have a couple other guests that we'll be getting to throughout the week as well, which we really look forward to. If you have any suggestions for guests, you can also contact me at that number on the bottom of the screen at any time. I would love to hear from you. All right, join us every weekday morning, starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. I look forward to it already. Have a great day, everyone.
One of the things I like most about being a mortgage loan officer is helping people make dreams come true.
The most satisfying part is seeing people succeed in accomplishing the purchase of a home.
Whether it's refinancing for a lower monthly payment, a lower interest rate, or to tap in your home's equity.
Whether you're buying your first home or looking to refinance, First Heritage will be here to help.
My name is Cindy.
My name is Tracy.
My name is Peter.
My name is Deb.
We are here to guide you.